Hello, my name is Davis Winn, the main man behind Davis Winn Productions. Before we begin this story, I want to address some things. First, this story is a journalistic-style exposé, where I shed light and the truth on falsehoods and secrets that people try to hide. As such, there will only be facts stated throughout this video. I will not make any claim or statement without factual backup, and any hypothetical opinions or claims will be clearly stated as such. Secondly, this exposé affects me on a personal level. In order to properly go about this in a dignified manner, I have removed all personal biases in order to focus on showing the unadulterated truth, even if I may not fully agree with it. Lastly, this exposé opened my eyes to some pretty shady, deceptive, and sometimes horrifying things. There is some content in this series as a whole that may be sensitive to some viewers, so discretion is advised. Thank you and enjoy the series. Now, before we get into any specifics, we need to grasp the basic understanding on these things: how sports franchises work, their relations to the city, and the franchise's stadium that they play in. These three factors are essential to understanding the story we will embark on. So let's get into it. We start with a simple question that deep down we may not all know. How does a sports franchise run and work? Well, thanks to the glorious powers of Google, all it takes is putting in that question into the search bar to get your results. BizFluent's article covers this well, citing that owning a sports team can cost millions of dollars each year. While the costs are high, the payoff can be great as well. Properly running a sports franchise can help guarantee a steady revenue stream and a good return on your investment. People do not come to watch games to see the owner, but they also like to know that a competent person is behind the scenes, making sure that the team is successful. And that is important to remember. These sports franchises are businesses, and yes, they do technically sell a product, and that is the team itself. Going to games, getting your ticket scanned, the security guard checking your bag, the fan group giving you the brochure for the game, the cooks at the snack bar. All of this stuff revolves around the franchise, and it all begins at the very tippity top, the owners. If you are an owner of a franchise, which remember is a business, goal number one, like any other business, minimize costs, maximize profits. Sure, there are other important things like keeping your employees happy, your customers happy, staying competitive with rival companies, and so on, but it is absolutely factual that the main priority of a sports franchise and the league that it plays in is to be as profitable as possible, even if it means cutting some corners. Next, city relations. Your franchise is playing in a city with well over 300,000 people, if not millions. You want to make sure that the people of your city want to go to your games. You also want to make sure that you are good pals with your local government. Making sure you are both on the same page, and when disagreements do arise, work them out in a dignified manner. You will soon learn what really goes on and who's in control. Finally, your stadium, the place that you play in. The main factors is making sure that your stadium is well maintained, up to date, and filled with fans. Now, the subject of stadiums has a lot of gray area, but generally, a stadium with modern amenities and a nice look can often benefit to not only attendance, but also fan relations. However, Sometimes teams can get away with keeping the same stadium for decades until it becomes a sort of historical relic of a sport, such as Fenway Park in Boston or Lambeau Field in Green Bay. But for the most part, a team will have a stadium last somewhere around 35 to 45 years. So with the basics out of the way, it is time to expose the falsehoods of these sports franchises. We're going to be looking at many teams from across 5 different American sports leagues and show how they betrayed or are currently betraying their cities and loyal fans. Our series will be divided into 6 episodes: baseball, hockey, basketball and soccer combined, 2 parts for the NFL, and finally, a personal take from me for episode 6. For this episode, we will begin with America's pastime, and that is baseball. Since 2000, only 1 franchise has relocated, but several have been smeared by controversy. First, we begin with the Montreal Expos and Jeffrey Loria. The MLB franchise represented Canada along with the Toronto Blue Jays. So, this story is about the team owners, right? Well, let's get the owner into our spotlight, Jeffrey Loria, the art dealer turned sports owner. His legacy begins with a 24% minority ownership of this franchise. And over the years, he worked his way up the ladder to becoming the majority owner of the Expos. When Loria took control, he let it be known that the old owner's low-budget approach, or as he called it, business as usual, was over. His first order of business was stronger demands for a new stadium. The last ownership was considering replacing the old Montreal Olympic Stadium, which was not architecturally a good baseball stadium. However, Loria decided to triple down on the stadium issue, even going so far as to say, "We cannot stay here." Needless to say, the people of Montreal were not happy. So, Loria and Montreal did not have good relations, clearly. What's a good way to right this ship? I know. Failed to reach an agreement to provide English-speaking commentary for Expos games in 2000, because nothing brings good semblance like giving Canadian viewers a TV broadcast that they cannot understand. Now, how did this happen? Well, Loria demanded, not requested, demanded more money for broadcasting rights for games on TV. The city refused to bend over to his will, and Loria struck the city down. Loria continued to pursue the construction of a new ballpark. He sought support from Major League Baseball, the Quebec government, and the architectural firm HOK Sport for a cheaper, redesigned version of Labatt Park that gave the retro classic concept in favor of a more modern design with curved contours and glass. HOK and MLB both thought that Loria's proposed design was structurally unsound. More seriously, although Loria had been led to believe that his right-hand man had been convinced that the provincial government would contribute to the funding, in reality, no agreement had been reached. All of this drama kept falling apart, and the fans responded. The 2001 season attendance was a total of 642,748 fans. Divide that by 81, and you have an average game attendance of 7,935 fans per game. That is worse than most Division II college football games. Many of Loria's partners started to rumor that the strings he was pulling was an intentional move to relocate the team out of Montreal. The MLB decided that the franchise could not survive and began plans to contract the team with the Minnesota Twins in late 2001. Loria eventually sold the franchise to the MLB, which meant that the team would still play. In exchange, he got to take ownership of the Florida Marlins, because obviously after ruining one franchise, surely he couldn't ruin another, right? Then February 12th, 2002 comes around. Loria takes control of the Marlins. While he's at it, all of the computers and data he had in Montreal are sent to Miami so he can shave a few dollars. This left Montreal completely battered and, in a few years' time, without a team at all. A year later, the Marlins won the World Series. A good sign indeed. However, things didn't fall apart until 2011. For all those previous years, the Marlins played in Sun Life Stadium, or whatever it's named now because they change the name every 10 minutes it seems. This was the home of the Miami Dolphins, a football stadium, which was not very well suited for baseball. Loria worked up another stadium debate, and thanks to Miami's almost willingness to give them what he wants, a deal worked out to get the Marlins a brand new baseball-specific stadium. The problem was, over $300 million towards that budget was public money, meaning that taxpayers and other small taxes would be added for Miami residents. Loria, the man with a net worth of well over $500 million, aggressively and threatened the team with another relocation if the city did not contribute to paying the stadium. During the debate, he asked the commissioners if they wanted Miami to become the only major city in America without Major League Baseball. Because this poor soul is borderline broke, he can't afford to pay for a stadium as a multi-millionaire. We keep hearing, if you build it, they will come, said Commissioner Katie Sorensen, who casted a vote against the plan. I don't believe it, and this field of dreams is going to be a nightmare for our taxpayers. Now you see, Katie did what city officials should rightfully do, have the best interests of the city residents and prioritizing the city over the business. On April 1st, 2009, Miami's planning board voted 6-1 in approval of the overall construction permit for the Marlins' new ballpark, meaning that the people of Miami were going to be responsible for paying that stadium. The taxpayers were responsible for nearly all of this business's location. The total building cost of the stadium complex rose by a few million to $634 million total. More than 80% of that would be paid for using public money. Analysts of the bond sale soon publicized that, with interest compounding over 40 years, the total cost to the county to repay them would rise to $2.4 billion. As the Miami media and bloggers circulated reports of the staggering fiscal numbers, construction began with a groundbreaking ceremony on July 18, 2009. Now you may be asking, how on earth did he get away with this? Well, he almost didn't. The Miami Herald reported on December 2nd, 2011 that the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission had issued subpoenas to the city of Miami and the county, requesting financial records, meeting minutes, and communications with executives from the Marlins and Major League Baseball dating back to 2007. The executives named in the subpoena include Baseball Commissioner Bud Selig, ex-MLB President Robert Dupuy, Loria, and Sampson. The investigation came about because of the Marlins' claims that the team needed public money because it could not afford to pay for a new ballpark. As of now, nothing yet. If the SEC does find something, criminal charges would be imminent for sure. Now don't get me wrong, I believe the new Marlins Park is absolutely beautiful and stunning. But is it worth it to the people of Miami spending almost $2.5 billion? And with Miami having a downtown population of 463,000 people, that works out to every person in downtown Miami owing the Marlins $5,184. This is pure insanity. But it doesn't even end there. The Marlins are still a disaster-run franchise. How so? Mr. November himself, Derek Jeter. Yes, that's right. One of the greatest Yankees of all time decided that after retiring, he wanted to get into the world of executive baseball. After Loria sold the Marlins, presumably to take the money and run, Jeter was given a 4% ownership, yet he was given the CEO position of the franchise. The people of Miami were hoping that Jeter would be better and would actually put effort into restoring the broken relationship between the Marlins and Miami. What did he do? He dug the knife even deeper. What a better way to win the trust of your city than by cutting all possible costs. Overpaid players? Gone. Star players? Gone. You name it, they got rid of it. It even stemmed all the way to basic positions of staff. The person who played as the mascot was fired, longtime executive staff were fired, and even more just to shave costs. Even a scout for the team, who had cancer and needed a new kidney, he was laying in the hospital bed just after colon cancer surgery when the word was sent to him that he was no longer needed. I firmly believe that Derek Jeter did one of the most heartless things possible. Even if Jose Fernandez were still alive today, I strongly believe that Jeter would have traded him for cheap prospects, like he did with most other players on the team. It does not help that due to Loria's ridiculous choices, that the club is bleeding money like a severed arm, and money is hard to come by. Jeter still believes he is doing the right thing and expects the Marlins to soon become a World Series level team with sold out games every day. Good luck with that, Jeets. Next up on our baseball journey is the Texas Rangers, the team that plays in the Dallas suburb of Arlington after moving there from Washington in the year 1971. Thankfully, the Rangers do not have a giant list of ridiculous atrocities that smear their name. The Rangers still have their share of the pie, though. Their current Globe Life Park baseball stadium is currently 26 years old, and it is already being replaced. Why though? The stadium looks absolutely beautiful because of one thing. I'm not kidding you, one thing. A roof. You see, baseball is a game where we already have a mental picture in our head for a game day experience. You are in your seat, hot dog in hand, your family laughing, all wearing the same team hat and sunglasses. Your mom saying, "Don't forget to put on your sunscreen," and stuff like that. And that's the point. We assume a baseball game is at an outdoor stadium, and most of us want to keep it that way. It's natural for us humans to reject change even if it may be for the better. And after 25 years, the Rangers and their fans could not take the 110-degree heat anymore. As mentioned, most stadiums will last around 35 years or so. So why not renovate it and add a roof? Well, in the Rangers' defense, you can't just take a stadium and add a roof on top of it like a tarp. You could do what the Miami Dolphins did with Sun Life, or whatever it's called now. You do this by adding shade to the seats. But the Rangers did not want to settle, and they did not want a fixed dome either. Now, here is where we get into some technical terms about roofs. An indoor stadium, as we know, is usually called a dome. There are two types of domes, and it has to do with the roof itself: fixed and retractable. A fixed roof means that it is a permanent roof and that it cannot be altered, moved, or adjusted in any way. Examples of this are Tropicana Field, the Dome at America Center, or US Bank Stadium. A retractable roof, however, is similar to a dome, but the roof can be moved out of the way and give a stadium an outdoor feel. Examples of this will include Lucas Oil Stadium, NRG Stadium, and Chase Field. People prefer retractable stadiums because most fixed domes have a tendency to look dark, but US Bank Stadium is a fixed roof, but it uses glass panels to give it an outdoor feeling without having to add a retractable roof. The other thing to note is retractable roofs are significantly more expensive. as you need to have the structure move out of the way and shift back into a dome-type stadium. Whew, didn't expect to get an architecture lesson, did ya? Now let's get back on track. Now, as I mentioned, the Rangers wanted a roof to deal with the intense summer heat during baseball games. They wanted a retractable roof and not a fixed dome, so the only way to effectively get this done is to get a completely brand new stadium developed. However, like most other franchises, the Texas Rangers owners, Ray Davis and Bob Simpson, who have a combined net worth of nearly $2 billion, strong-armed the Arlington Town Hall and residents to pay for this new ballpark. The team drew up the blueprints and estimated the new Globe Life Field would cost roughly $1.1 billion. This plea to the government would cost taxpayers $600 million, roughly half of the cost of the stadium. The crazier fact is, this was voted on. Arlington is a very wealthy suburb in Dallas, and the people were perfectly fine with their taxes increasing for the stadium. The taxes themselves would be contributed via a half-cent sales tax, a 2% hotel tax, and a 5% car rental tax. However, even the Dallas News stated that Arlington officials, however, must juggle their finances to accommodate the new stadium. Why? Because they are already dealing with the Dallas Cowboys' AT&T Stadium. Jerry Jones's $1.3 billion palace was nearly 25% public money, a total of almost $300 million. All of these bonds are expected to be fully paid off in the year 2047. That's 28 years of taxing your city residents for a baseball stadium with a moving roof. Hope it's worth it, guys. A roof will not stop the heat, and the Rangers will not stop choking in the playoffs. David Freeze. Next up on our tour is Atlanta, Georgia, the city who only has 2 sports champions in their entire sporting history. One was Atlanta United in 2018, the other was the Braves all the way back in 1995, merely 2 years before the new Turner Field was opened. Now, Turner Field is a unique story of stadiums. The facility was not meant to be a baseball stadium originally. Turner Field was built to accommodate for the 1996 Olympic Games, located in Atlanta that year. The city built this stadium in a way to be used as the main venue for the Olympics and also for all of the track and field events. As you can see, it has a strange shape to the seating. This was because after the Olympics ended, the outer grandstands would be demolished and the stadium as a whole would be remodeled and tweaked for baseball usage. The redesign was successful. The once famed stadium, where Michael Johnson won gold and set a new world record, became a ballpark home to the Atlanta Braves. However, in 2013, merely 16 years after Turner Field opened, the Braves executives began plans for a new stadium in the suburb of Cobb County. So what's the deal here? Why so soon? Why in a place not in downtown? Well, their reasons were listed. The first issue to address was the immense traffic jams and congestion on game days. Turner Field did not have as much parking as other cities, so many would either wait hours on end to try and hopefully find a spot to park, or they would have to take the downtown metro, where the closest station was still a solid 3/4 of a mile away, well over 1 kilometer just to walk from the station. The team vice president for business operations, Mike Plant, said that the site doesn't match up with where the majority of our fans come from, as the stadium is near some of Atlanta's poorest neighborhoods. Because what better way to preach to your choir than saying that the poor people of your city aren't as big fans as the rich people? Maybe if the Braves owner could lower tickets and concessions in order to make it more accessible for these lower income people. But yeah, we want to have our stadium near a fancy strip mall instead of in the ghetto. That's totally a reasonable request, right? Screw them. Oh wait, that's right. The owner of the Atlanta Braves is the Liberty Media Corporation, which houses Formula One, the highest level of racing in the entire world. In addition to a 7% stake in the Kroenke Arena Company, and we'll get to that later, and a majority stake in SiriusXM, which has an average $5 billion in yearly revenue, they couldn't possibly deal with paying for the stadium that they wanted. Well then, let's have the Cobb County taxpayers deal with it then. Oh, wait, they don't want the taxes? Well then let's not even have a vote on it. All of those expensive Turner renovations wouldn't last after all. Let's just get out while we can. So, how is the new SunTrust Park then? Well, traffic is still awful, but hey, at least we don't have to deal with those pesky poor people. Oh, and the Cobb County government and taxpayers on the hook for $16.4 million as well. Yay. Here we go, the first part of the Oakland tragedy. Yes, because 3 teams in Oakland are suffering. The Warriors moved across the bay, the Raiders are leaving, so here is the lonely Oakland A's, a team that has been in the Oakland Coliseum since 1968. A stadium that old must be an old piece of history, right? Well, you would be wrong. Unfortunately, all attempts of renovations were botched and ended up making things even worse. Most notable is this upper deck level known as Mount Davis, named after the Raiders' owner at the time, Al Davis, because he wanted more seating capacity in the Coliseum. And it almost single-handedly killed the entire stadium's charm. How? Well, beforehand, the outfield was completely barren, and because of that, you could see the mountains off in the distance. This giant seating structure removed all of those beautiful views. So this stadium, unfortunately, is actually pretty old and very run down. There are sewage problems that run galore, and there have been reports of infestations in the stadium. So this place is actually terrible. Well then, let's try to get a new ballpark. Oh wait, there's an issue. It's a multi-usage stadium. The A's and the Raiders share a stadium, so they could either remodel a multi-use stadium or build 2 separate facilities. Ooh, the cost would be crazy high if they did that. Well, we will focus on the Raiders later. The A's need a new ballpark, but Oakland can't exactly afford it with public money. They have enough problems in the city to deal with as is. So is there any hope for Oakland's baseball team? Well, as of now, there is one small possibility. A new stadium plan on the riverfront of Oakland. As of now, reports say that the whole thing will be privately funded as well. But I'm still not sure. No plan has been finalized yet, but I firmly believe that Oakland needs to get some sort of deal that keeps this team in Oakland. With all the sports things going on in that city, it would be brutal if they lost their baseball team. And we conclude this episode with 3 final baseball pieces. These aren't really the fault of terrible owners, but rather a lack of goodwill towards the team and city relations. First, the Arizona Diamondbacks. They are currently trying to replace Chase Field soon. The stadium is ginormous and has thousands of seats, so many that it's almost impossible to fully fill the park. They have the option to opt out of the stadium by 2022, and so far no concrete ideas are out yet. There have been rumors about a new stadium on native tribal land, however, it is merely a rumor, and frankly, let's hope it stays that way. Also, the Tampa Bay Rays. Tropicana Field has been trashed on for years now. While it's not a terrible place, it certainly stands out in front of all the other ballparks in the league. An indoor dome with ugly looking outfield walls and an overall sterilized look. everyone, and I mean everyone, wants them to get out of there. There was the Yibor plan, which fell through and leaves them back at square one. Even Rays player Tommy Pham even got in on the issue. It seems the only option is either a new stadium or a new city. Oh, you're considering moving to Montreal for half the season now? Finally, the Anaheim Angels. Wait, no. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They dropped the... Oh, okay. Alright, let's try this again. The Los Angeles Angels, even though they play in Anaheim. Anyway, the stadium has been around since the 60s. A major renovation was completed in the late 90s, but the place is still showing its ugly age. The team opted out of its stadium contract, which gives them a chance to explore new potential sites. They are looking at staying within the LA area, but that doesn't mean a cross-country move is in the thoughts of these owners. And that is it for this episode. The next part will release next Friday. In this part, we will discuss how horrible mismanagement and ownership can take Canada's sport of hockey and ruin it for both them and the USA. Thank you for watching, and I leave you with this final quote from Brad Meltzer. When you believe in something, fight for it. And when you see injustice, fight harder than you've ever fought before.